How is it going, everybody? This is Cerndale, and we are so close to Wilds coming out. We got, what, 3 days until it comes out? I guess 4, depending on where you live, but I think for me it's coming out on 9 p.m. on the day before, so I'm a little bit lucky. But anyway, it's almost here. So excited. I'm going to watch the IGN Monster Hunter Wilds review. 10 minutes long. It's pretty fast. I know that other people, other YouTubers who have gotten a copy of the game, their releases, their reviews, I should say, are coming out, and some are longer than others, but I want to see what IGN has to say. So without any ado, let's get into it.
After the massive success of both Monster Hunter World
All right,
and
Tom.
Monster Hunter
All right, Tom,
Rise,
let's hear
it
it.
makes sense that Capcom would do whatever it can to welcome that wider audience into the next frontier.
True. Just like Frontiers.
That's
Monster
exactly
Hunter
what
Frontier
Monster
reference.
Hunter Wilds does, smoothing out the already excellent process of turning big scary dragons into silly little hats to be faster, more flexible, and less fiddly than ever before. The other side of those dual blades, however, is that Wilds is light on any real challenge, even for what I'd expect at launch, never asking me to think hard about my equipment. But while the monsters may not pose much of a threat this time around, smart tweaks to combat still mean the act of carving them up has rarely felt better.
Okay. I mean, yeah, that's an issue that I think a lot of people have been having, or I've at least been worrying about. The difficulty, that's been a subject of worry for a long time, especially with Rise, because a lot of people believed Rise to be incredibly easy. So it's interesting that the first thing that IGN has to say is that it is too easy. That was interesting. Very, very interesting. Oh, wait, let's see. Reviewed on PS5 Pro. Okay. Okay. I'm a PC player, so I like to pay attention to that. I don't have the strongest PC either.
My first surprise in Wilds was that the campaign isn't just a totally forgettable excuse to kill anything that crosses your path this time. Okay, it's still mostly that as you explore yet another uncharted land to solve some mystery, but while the story itself isn't particularly fresh, the difference here is that the characters within it are actually pretty great. Whether it's the excitable engineer Gemma,
We are so gonna talk later, pal.
your empathetic handler Alma,
Oh, but I've definitely heard of him.
or the total space cadet of a biologist Eric,
This forest is amazing.
your team is
Space
full
cadet.
of likable personalities and little character arcs throughout the gorgeously animated cutscenes.
Yeah, I wonder how much you're going to see
Told
the
you
other
they'd be
squad.
fine.
And that was enough to get me more invested. The revamped structure of Wilds also
Well,
means
that's
that
good.
campaign is significantly shorter than I was expecting. I reached the credits in just 15 hours and didn't have to fight a single monster twice in that time, getting enough materials from any initial encounters to keep my gear up to snuff and jump right from one mission to the next.
That doesn't seem too bad, honestly. Especially in a game like Monster Hunter, where a lot of the player base doesn't want to have this incredibly long-lasting story mode that you need to deal with, I guess. I mean, I like the fact that they're digging more into the story of this game, but like $15, that's kind of like, I'd say that's pretty reasonable. Hopefully, I'm hoping that it's like a good 15 hours, and then it lets you free, and not just like some willy-nilly whatever.
next. When you compare that to the 40 plus hours it took to see the end of the story and world, it feels like the intent is to allow more people to quote unquote beat Wilds. And I certainly appreciate how
40
that
hours.
shift toward approachability might appeal to any.
Oh, I guess so. Was there a credits after? Oh, it was like, yeah, it's Xeno'jiva. Okay, interesting. Because I was kind of thinking of Rise, where you get credits, like the credits roll really fast. But I guess that's true in World. I haven't like played through a World in quite a bit, so I guess you do have to go through low rank. Okay, I see the problem now. Going through low rank and high rank is in 15 hours. Okay, interesting.
One who has been traditionally intimidated by the series. But as a veteran, I can't help but be a little disappointed that I literally didn't get knocked out once in that entire time. There's never a skill or armor testing wall of a monster that forced me to really consider my equipment choices more deeply.
Okay, this is completely up to... It's hard to gauge a statement like this because I have no idea who this is. It's some IGN dude. He might have played like every game ever and then is just goated with the sauce. Although it is IGN. A lot of people seem to have issues with the IGN gameplay. I don't know what to think because in World was mine. I'm a fiber, right? World was my first game. Anjanath was like a bit of a wall for me for a bit before I was able to beat him, but now by this point, after playing through World, Iceborne, Rise, and Sunbreak, going back to that game, when I did, it's like not that bad. So it's hard to say for like make a statement for sure on the difficulty in terms of like if there's walls for casual players or not.
In order to earn the reward of a
I get
hard-fought
it.
victory.
Yeah. The whole game, though, really, that is a little
Avoiding
worrying.
spoilers, there is, of course, more to do once you get past the credits. That's where the larger changes Wilds makes to the traditional Monster Hunter loop really start to shine. Gone are the days of returning to a separate town between every hunt, then going down the same checklist of tasks before you're ready for the next one. Pretty much everything you need is out in the field with you, and you're never more than a lickety-split loading screen away from whichever beautiful area you want to be in. Convenient adjustments are all over
I am
the
curious
place, like
how
food buffs being tied to a timer now that sticks around
seamless
between
movement
hunts.
is
It
gonna
doesn't even tick down while in
feel
camp,
between
making
quests.
a previously repetitive process substantially smoother without removing the
wanna eat
depth
that.
it added to hunts.
Nothing like home cooking.
Was she drinking cheese?
The roaringly successful result of those changes is that a vast majority of the friction past games could produce as you start
think
and
I wanna
stop
drink
and
cheese.
restart between every encounter has been removed. Now you can just check your map for monster information and go hunt. The monsters you'll face are also generally excellent. That could be a flashy newcomer like the flamenco-inspired Lalabarina, or Wild's headliner
monster.
Arkveld and its chain-like appendages.
Okay, this was beta.
But the true stunner has to be New Udra.
I was like, no way they're
The
just
tentacles
showing
of Monster Hunter's first octopus-like creature
the
can
real
be as
Arkveld. That
unpredictable
was
to
beta
contend
footage.
with as you might expect, especially when they're literally on fire. And the satisfaction of severing every single one of them over the course of a hunt is second to none.
Yeah, I did a video on the community managers fighting New Udra. And I am really excited to see if I can slap off all of the arms because I'm a charge blade user, so I'm hoping that Pizza Cutter's gonna put in the work and slap those off.
The appeal of Monster Hunter's fights has always been how it empowers you with flashy moves and hard-hitting attacks,
Sure.
but knowing when to strike and where to stand and how the monster will behave next is just as important as figuring out which buttons to press.
Cool. Insect glaive.
That's true in
I
Wilds
haven't even
too,
tried
but
the
combat is also
base
more
insect glaive, so I don't
flexible
know
and
if that's
forgiving here. For example, you can
the
adjust
OG
your
or not.
footing a little more mid-combo, resulting in fewer moments where a mistimed attack with a long animation had me embarrassingly slicing at the air.
That is a good argument. I mean, they added a lot of like fluidity between your actions with I mean the more forgiving attack like end lag and stuff, and then also the focus mode letting you adjust like super freely. So I do wonder if this is going to be something that they stick with or like for the future of Monster Hunter. I mean, it's funny talking about the future of Monster Hunter when Wilds isn't even out yet, so I'm sorry if I'm getting a little ahead of myself. But It is something to talk about because that is kind of what made a huge appeal for people with the older Monster Hunter games. Everything felt like super weighty and you really had to commit to everything that you were doing. But it definitely seems, especially from, even from like, well, Rise is a bit of an outlier with its crazy stuff going on. But things definitely seem way more lenient in this game. So interesting to see how that'll feel in the full game. For sure. Take a break.
In many ways, the combat
This is the
feels
full
like it's
game.
all about the new wound system this time. Wounds open up once you deal enough damage to a given body part, and then you'll deal extra damage when attacking them. But deal enough damage to a wound and it'll break, resetting that spot. Every weapon also has a simple to execute focus strike that will deal a burst of damage to a wound and break it right away. So maximizing the amount of time you leave one open and then using that finisher before it closes naturally is an interesting subgame to manage. Or at least it would be if Wilds ever presented me with a challenge that pushed me to make those considerations. Whether I was playing online or solo, I've never had a mission reach the 20-minute mark, and I've only fainted 2 times total across dozens of hours. Compare that to World, which had real tests like Kieran, who smacked me silly my first couple of attempts, forcing me to regroup and craft an armor set around thunder resistance, and it's hard not to feel like Capcom's desire to make this a more inviting Monster Hunter sanded off some of the bumps I actually enjoyed in terms of overcoming big threats.
So he said he didn't time out, but I've never had that issue. It's kind of either like I die or I win. Like, except for I think Fatalis and World is when I've actually timed out. So I don't think that's really that much of an issue. Like, I feel like you're gonna assume that you're going to do enough damage to win, assuming that you don't die. But I need. What's like? I'm trying to think of this because he's saying that the difficulty is like really nothing at all, and that he wanted wounds to be more considered. I don't think that I'm not going into this with the assumption that the wound mechanic is something that you like need, that's like required for you to strategize about in order to win. I feel like this is just a perfect balancing of the like clutch claw and like tenderization. It's like something that absolutely helps you and can speed up and like rewards you if you're good at maintaining and utilizing that stuff, but I don't think it's something that's required to win. At least that's like what my impression of it was. So it's interesting that Mr. IGN was going into the with that expectation that he's gonna need to be like strategic about the wounds and stuff. I still kind of need to be strategic about the wounds because I need it to activate my Savage Axe mode, and I can't get like perfect guard and stuff. So, but you know, whatever. Interesting, very very interesting that. It said you only carded twice in like dozens and dozens of hours. So is this including post game as well? Because that might get a little bit worrying if this guy is only carding twice throughout the entire story and post game. I think I can understand a little bit of the worries.
Things do ramp up a little bit in the post game, but even there I only really had to worry about upgrading my armor or falling behind in damage once or twice during the content that's available at launch. After the 15 hours it took me to beat the campaign, I only had to spend another 15 to finish every side quest that wasn't about catching fish, and just 5 more after that before I had the best armor set and weapon I could get and a pretty solid suite of skill boosting decorations. To be fair, I still have plenty more equipment I could grind for, but my usual desire to get the top tier weapon of each elemental type and put together specialized outfits for certain challenging fights just isn't here this time, because those fights aren't here either. I think a lot of this comes down to raw numbers that could hypothetically be tweaked in one of the many patches that are sure to come. But some of what makes things so easy also seems to be baked into the bones of Wilds. For example, nearly every time you focus strike a wound, the monster gets locked into a little stagger animation. and you'll be breaking wounds
Sometimes.
a lot. Meanwhile, on the
Not
crafting
always.
side of things, my hunt for the best armor was
That's a
way
cool bow.
shorter than I ever expected because materials that are usually super rare can sometimes show up as guaranteed rewards when looking at the monster list on your map. That was excitingly convenient initially, but it's also what brought that loot chase to an almost trivially fast end.
Perfection.
Okay.
I imagine this difficulty tuning will get a lot more people through the front door, but it also means that where my past 3 Monster Hunter reviews wrapped up around the 50 to 60 hour mark while I still had plenty more I was excited to do, I started losing steam with Wilds before I even hit 40. Don't get me wrong, that's still a healthy chunk of game,
Interesting.
and it has absolutely been
Very
some of the most fun I've
interesting.
had with the series. I'm also sure any longtime fans will be thinking, well, we just have to wait for updates or G-Rank or whatever for the real challenge. But in that regard, Capcom's own roadmap has left me wary. There's only 1 monster scheduled to be added for all of spring, and then only 1 currently listed for summer. In contrast, Rise also felt slight at launch, but got 6 new monsters just 1 month later, and then 3 more a month after that. Wilds already feels
Okay, so I haven't played a Monster Hunter game as like updates were coming out for it. Like I technically have, but I wasn't like actively playing it during because I started World before like Fatalis and stuff happened, but I was at the start of the game and Zora Magdaros was crashing my computer, so I stopped playing for a long ass time. And then I eventually came back to it and played through it, but by that time everything was already out. And then Rise, I played it at the tail end of Sunbreak when the updates for that was still coming out. And then by the time I actually like sat down and caught up to Sunbreak, everything was already out. So I wasn't like totally keeping track of what updates were happening with the games. So in terms of this, I don't know for context how many monsters is normal for them to add during like between title updates. But I do know, I feel like Rise isn't the best example for something like this because Rise had like very specific circumstances because it was a COVID baby. That was a COVID game. So I feel like it's a bit unfair to compare Wild's update. However, I mean, maybe it is. Like I said, I don't know the full context for like how World updated or how other games updated. Actually, if those games were even in the era of that kind of update. But Rise was like, the ad production was completely stifled by COVID. So I'd imagine they had to just go like, okay, we're gonna like work on this stuff later, just put out what we can, and then we'll add all these monsters to like keep up with what we missed out on. So I feel like that's, from my understanding, by the way, from my understanding, I feel like that's not the most apt comparison, but yeah, let me know if the Wilds update of just Mizutsune in spring is normal or not. And I mean, they did say that they're going to be adding event quests and things like that and other limited time quests.
feels like it needs endgame threats like its formidable elder dragons to really push its limits. And if it instead only gets 1 returning monster in the first 3 or so months after launch, this could be a long wait until its inevitable expansion. That all said, Wilds deserves credit for being what has got to be one of the most customizable games I have ever played. There's a huge host of accessibility features. You can adjust the size of or turn off individual elements on your UI.
What's the most amount of things you can have on your screen at a time? I kind of want to try that, where everything is as big as it can be, placed all in the center, like you can't see anything.
More control than
I'm
ever
curious.
over your menus and radio wheels, and you can alter the look of stuff like your mount, chat stickers, and even fast travel tents to a surprising degree. As a crowning touch, you can finally wear any version of each armor set too, essentially doubling the cosmetic options previously available as you get into the all-important fashion side of things towards the end.
Fashion Hunter.
Partying up online has also been made more robust, letting you run around each map with your friends and seamlessly flow from hunt to hunt without having to regroup at camp between each mission. And even if you're largely planning to play solo, there are quality of life changes here for you too. That could be the surprisingly competent AI support hunters that fill empty spots in your party when you fire an SOS flare, but also the inclusion of an online single-player option that lets you fire flares to get help, but still pause the action entirely before you do.
Something that I just completely remembered, or I forgot about, and then I just remembered when he said that. I am curious if they're going to iterate on the follower system from Rise, because I'd love to fight with the Guild Matla Ace Lancer. I don't remember what he's called in this game. He has a cool jacket. Ace Lancer from 4, and he's like the guild. He's the big head honcho in this game. Because that was a really fun system that let you like play with all the characters that you met throughout the game. And the AI, I mean, there's Olivia right there. She's the hammer girl on the cover. So maybe the more characters you meet, the more people you get in your hunts. But I mean, yeah, in general, for like a single player hunt, being able to access AI supporters, if there is anybody to join you, that's a good thing. That's a good thing. But yeah, just curious for the future, because I'd love to see that.
Monster Hunter Wilds continues to smooth off the rougher corners of the series in smart ways, reducing as much friction as possible that could get in the way of you grabbing any of its exceptionally fun weapons and planting them firmly in a monster's hide. But in that quest to make Monster Hunter more approachable, Wilds is sliced a little too close to the bone in some places, trimming its challenge back so much that I barely needed to engage with its in-depth equipment system at all this time to become an apex predator. Its more flexible combat is still some of the most fun I've had with the series, but like the blustering lightning storms of its gorgeous desert, it burns brightly but briefly until Capcom unleashes some real endgame beasts to challenge us.
Eight. Okay. Sure. I feel like the meme is to just like shit on IGN for what, like 7 out of 10 too much water, you know? Well, I feel like these concerns were fairly reasonable, especially the amount of content that's in the game and the like difficulty. It's I don't know, because we know that there's a lot of end game. I'm pretty sure that they've said that you can like upgrade a lot of your stuff to like end game for all the monsters. And there's tempered monsters. They've shown frenzied monsters. So it seems like there would be a lot of post game content. It kind of sounded like he didn't dig too deep into the post game stuff because he got tired after a certain point. I don't know. It's hard to say, but it is very interesting to consider in terms of difficulty and content available. I'm still confident that, I mean, I know I'm going to have a great time, right? It's Monster Hunter. How can you not love Monster Hunter? I'm going to probably enjoy the story. It's going to be fun seeing all the monsters that we don't know of. But yeah, I guess only time will tell if these concerns... Why am I yawning? If these concerns end up being validated by the general public or not. Very, very interesting. Okay, well, that's that, I guess. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure, I mean, like you know IGN, you can check them out on your own if you'd like. But only 3 question mark days left, actually. It's probably 4 days left for most of you guys, but you know, if you're being really specific, it's like 3 in a couple hours, 3 and some change. I actually think you might be able to preload at this point, so check that out. If you don't, please remember to like and subscribe, because I like making videos. It's fun, and being able to share that with you guys is really awesome as well. So thank you guys so much. Like and subscribe. Hit the bell to get notification on when I upload more videos. Ding ding. That's what happens when you hit the bell or something. Thank you. Have a good day. Love.